Before we dive into the main topic, please take a moment to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like this podcast, and leave a comment to support the channel. Your engagement truly helps. Welcome to The Debate. I'm the advocate.
And I am the dissenter.
Today, we're dissecting a phrase that is so ubiquitous. It's been hollowed out by centuries of misuse. Carpe diem. It's something you see on inspirational posters, right? Or in high school yearbooks.
Seize the day. Yeah, it's maybe the most famous aphorism in Western history. And yet, if you actually look at the source material we've gathered, Horace's original context, modern psychological analysis, you find the popular understanding isn't just a little off, it's fundamentally flawed.
Precisely. The mainstream read is pure hedonism. It's a license for impulsivity, an invitation to just ignore consequences and live for the moment. It's basically the ancient world's version of YOLO. But the material suggests something far more rigorous. So the central question for us today is this. Is Carpe Diem a call to spontaneity, to escaping the future, or is it actually a strict discipline of responsibility and, well, future building?
And that is the tension. I think I know where you land on this. You see it as a mechanism for structure, a way to organize the chaos.
I do. I believe Carpe Diem, when you strip away all that pop culture baggage, is a tool for strategic discipline. The best way to understand it is intentional presence. It's about using today, the actual hours in this day, to construct a sustainable future. It isn't about ignoring tomorrow. It's about securing it.
And I'm coming at it from the opposite angle. To me, Carpe Diem is a philosophy of radical agency. The real power of the concept isn't in building or structuring, because that implies a stable, predictable timeline. The power lies in overcoming what the text calls the illusion of readiness. It's about acting immediately, right in the middle of uncertainty. It's about prioritizing the now, precisely because the future is a phantom that might never even arrive.
I can see why you'd frame it that way, given the existential weight of the text. But let's lay out my position first, just to establish a baseline. In our culture, Carpe Diem has been watered down. It's used to justify quitting a job with no plan or spending money you don't have. It's just become an excuse for poor impulse control. And the source material is very clear. Horace was not an advocate for chaos.
Right, we can definitely agree on that. Recklessness is a total misinterpretation. Horace had stoic leanings. He wasn't preaching anarchy.
Right. But here's where my view really diverges. True Carpe Diem is actually about doing the difficult things now. It's about having that honest conversation you've been putting off, or investing in your own growth, or choosing discipline over comfort. The philosophy isn't about escaping responsibility. It's about engaging with the present because it connects to the future. It's this realization that a solid future is built only through consistent present actions. If I study today, I'm seizing the day. If I invest today instead of spending on a whim, I am seizing the day. It's an act of foresight, not blindness.
I find that interpretation incredibly functional. I do. But I'm just not convinced it captures the spirit of the phrase. It feels like you're sanitizing its urgency. You're kind of turning a battle cry into a spreadsheet.
I'm turning it into a strategy. Without a strategy, seizing is just flailing around.
But look at the history here. The phrase comes from Horace's Odes, and as the text points out, Horace lived in a world of just massive political instability, civil war, short life expectancies. He had very little control over the future. He wasn't telling people to, maximize their retirement accounts. He was speaking to the terrifying fact that the future was fundamentally uncontrollable.
And yet, he didn't advocate for despair.
No, but he did advocate for awareness. And my position is that Carpe Diem is a direct challenge to what the text calls psychological delay. The most profound idea in here is that most of us are obsessed with waiting for the perfect moment. So the agency mindset I'm proposing says Carpe Diem is a call to action. It's about breaking the paralysis of waiting to be ready. It's about prioritizing action over preparation. Your version, it seems to me, puts preparation right back on the pedestal, which is exactly what the phrase warns against.
Not preparation for its own sake. Preparation as an act of doing. But let's dig into this. You mentioned waiting and this concept of psychological delay.
Yes. The trap of readiness versus the need for preparation. This is really the first big theme. The source material says, and I'm quoting here, readiness is often an illusion. And that's a critical psychological insight. We humans, we have a tendency to live in a state of postponement. We tell ourselves, oh, I'll start the business when the economy improves, or I'll have that tough conversation when I feel more confident.
I absolutely acknowledge that tendency. It's a form of procrastination, but it's disguised as prudence. We validate our own inaction by calling it planning.
It's a trap. It's a delay tactic disguised as wisdom. If you're waiting to feel ready, you will wait forever. The text argues most people are stuck in this psychological delay, just postponing their lives. The agency mindset of Carpe Diem says you have to act before you feel ready, you have to seize the opportunity before your own anxiety talks you out of it.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it a little differently. I agree that readiness is an illusion, but my counter is that action creates readiness. You don't act because you're ready. You become ready because you act. However, and this is the crucial part for my argument, this action must be intentional.
Intentional in what way?
Well, it can't just be random activity to, stave off boredom. The source material brings up a specific example. Language learning. This is a perfect application of the concept because it involves a high cognitive load and a lot of vulnerability.
It is, and I think that example proves my point, not yours.
How so?
The text talks about learners who delay speaking because they're terrified of mistakes. They study grammar charts for years, just waiting for the day they can speak perfectly. They're preparing just as you'd advocate. But a Carpe Diem approach means using the language now, accepting the broken grammar, understanding that progress only happens through imperfect action. It's about embracing the awkwardness of the now. It is about speaking before you are fluent. That isn't discipline in the traditional sense, that's courage. It's embracing the mess.
I see the courage, but I disagree on the motivation. Why does the learner speak now? Why endure that awkwardness? They do it in order to be fluent later. It is a form of investing in long-term growth. The motivation is still tied to that future outcome. If there were no future benefit, if they knew they died tomorrow, would they still bother with the awkwardness of conjugating verbs? The seizing is a mechanism for building.
That's a compelling point. But have you considered that the value might be in the engagement itself? If you're only speaking to be fluent later, then you're treating the present moment as just a stepping stone. You're reducing today to a transaction for tomorrow.
And you're suggesting we treat today as, what, an island?
I'm suggesting we treat today as the only reality we actually have. Which brings us to the second major theme in the text, experiential avoidance.
Yes, let's get into that. The text introduces this psychological concept, experiential avoidance, as our tendency to avoid discomfort by delaying action. We avoid speaking because we fear the shame of making a mistake. We avoid a career change because uncertainty is threatening.
Exactly. We avoid the visceral experience of the now because it's uncomfortable. We either numb ourselves or we plan endlessly, just to avoid the sting of reality.
And my argument is that seizing the day is specifically the act of confronting the pain we want to avoid. It is refusing to postpone meaningful action. When I say Carpe Diem is strategic discipline, I mean it's the discipline to face the discomfort of this present moment, rather than hiding in the comfort of procrastination. It's the discipline to say, this is hard, but I'm doing it because it matters.
But here's the nuance I think you might be missing. If we are always acting for the sake of the future, as you suggest, do we ever truly inhabit the present? The text asks a really haunting question. If this moment is all you truly have, how intentionally are you living it?
I would argue that preparing for the future is living intentionally. It creates a sense of purpose. It anchors the mind.
But is it? Or is it just another form of avoidance? I mean, if I spend my entire day grinding away for a retirement that's 30 years away, have I seized that day or have I sacrificed it? My view pushes for the value of the present moment for itself. The cost of waiting isn't just missed future success. The text says the cost is a narrowing of life right now. Your world gets smaller when you postpone living. You become a spectator in your own life, waiting for a scene that hasn't even started yet.
I think that's a fair critique, but it presents a false dichotomy. You can find joy in the discipline. The text says Carpe Diem is a balance between immediacy and foresight. It promotes joy, sure, but not denial. The point I'm making is that structure without action is meaningless, yes, but action without structure is just chaos. If I just live for the now without any framework, I'm just drifting.
But drifting is different from navigating a storm.
Explain that distinction.
Let's go back to Horace. Theme 3, structure versus uncertainty. You keep talking about structure and building and frameworks, but Horace's world, and frankly our world, is defined by uncertainty.
Oh, come on. We have significantly more stability than ancient Rome. We have career paths, life insurance, actuarial tables.
Do we? Or is that the illusion? Economies crash, pandemics happen, accidents happen. The source material emphasizes that the future does not begin tomorrow. That's a powerful line. It implies that the whole concept of tomorrow is a mental construct we use to delay living. We think we have time, so we put off what matters.
I interpret that line differently. The future does not begin tomorrow means the future is being forged in the present, and therefore we must be responsible now. The actions of today bleed directly into the reality of tomorrow.
And I interpret it to mean you're too focused on the foresight part. In a world of uncertainty, the only rational response is to assert agency now. The radical insistence of the text is, start where you are, act with what you have. It doesn't say, start where you are provided you have a 5-year plan and a safety net. It demands action in the face of the unknown.
But if you act with what you have, with no direction, you're just spinning your wheels. The text uses the exact words. Carpe Diem becomes a disciplined mindset, a mindset that values presence, intention, and conscious choice. Conscious choice implies you know where you're going. It implies a trajectory.
Or it just implies you are conscious of where you are. I'm sorry, I just don't buy that conscious choice requires a final destination. It requires an awareness of your immediate environment, the ability to look at the present moment with all its limitations and fears and say, I will not look away. That is agency. The ability to influence your reality right now, regardless of where that leads next week.
And I would say that I will not look away is the very definition of discipline. We might be using different words for a similar mechanism, but the intent matters. You seem to think the intent is to exist fully. I think the intent is to progress.
Perhaps. But let's look at the cost of delay mentioned in the text again. Missed opportunities, unrealized potential. These are things that happen because people are waiting for perfect conditions.
Agreed. Perfectionism is the enemy of Carpe Diem. We are aligned there.
Right. But your focus on strategic discipline, I think, kind of invites perfectionism back in. Strategies need to be perfect. Plans need to be watertight. When you tell people to build the future, their first psychological response is, okay, I need the blueprints first. And so they wait for the blueprints.
Not at all. A strategy can be agile. The text explicitly links Carpe Diem to imperfect action. My version of discipline embraces that imperfection. It's the discipline to be bad at something today, so I can be good at it tomorrow. It's the discipline to have the difficult conversation today, even if I stumble over my words, because postponing it just breeds resentment. That isn't perfectionism, it's pragmatism.
Okay, I can meet you there. If discipline means the grit to face imperfect action, then we have some alignment, but I still want to strip away the utility of it. I want people to have that difficult conversation today, not because it fixes the relationship for the future, but because not having it is a form of dying, a suppression of truth in the present.
That's a very dramatic way to put it.
But it's a C1, C2 level psychological framework. The suppression of truth is a form of psychological death. Experiential avoidance hardens into habit, and habit shapes our identity. If your identity becomes someone who waits, you are not seizing the day. You are, in essence, a passive observer of your own existence.
That's a profound point. If your identity is someone who waits. I think we can both agree that the text identifies the enemy very clearly. The enemy is not planning, and it's not spontaneity. The enemy is postponement.
Yes, the enemy is the comforting lie that there's always more time,
that someday is a real day of the week.
And this identity piece connects back to your point about the phantom of the future. If we identify as people who will do it later, we're identifying with a version of ourselves that doesn't exist yet.
Exactly. We're prioritizing a hypothetical self over the actual self. The actual self is the one sitting here, right now, probably feeling some fear or hesitation. Carpe Diem is about taking that actual self and putting it into motion.
And I would add that putting the self into motion is how we build the future self. You can't think your way into a new way of acting, but you can act your way into a new way of thinking. That is the essence of the discipline mindset. By acting now, we change the very structure of our future psychology.
I can agree with that. Action is the common denominator. Whether you're acting to secure a retirement or acting just to feel the wind on your face, the requirement is to break the stasis.
We're nearing the end of our time, and this discussion has certainly moved us far beyond the cliché on a bumper sticker. We've moved into a psychological framework for how we engage with time itself. It's not about fun, it's about function and existence.
It is rare that a 2,000-year-old poem can spark a debate on experiential avoidance and cognitive restructuring. But that's the power of the concept. It forces us to confront our own mortality.
Choice. It's not about ignoring the future. It's about honoring it by working for it today. That discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be.
And I maintain that Carpe Diem is fundamentally about courage. It is the antidote to the fear of mistakes, the fear of the unknown. It is the visceral understanding that the present is the only time we possess, so we must not postpone life. The cost of waiting is just too high, not just for our goals, but for our souls. We must act not to build the future, but to truly inhabit the present.
We did find a convergence, though. Whether you view it as building the future or inhabiting the present, the requirement is identical. Engage now.
Exactly. Start where you are, act with what you have.
And stop waiting to be ready.
We hope this debate has illuminated a depth behind this phrase for you. There is certainly more to explore in the material, especially regarding how these habits shape our identity over decades.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like, and leave a comment to support the channel.